A year ago today, September 18th of 2023, Lies of P launched on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Lies of P was a critically successful game that garnered a decent-sized fan base both because of the genre it catered to, Soulslikes, but also in part because of its visual style. Lies of P was bolstered by its Game Pass release, which brought in many casual onlookers who otherwise might have skipped it. In this video, we want to look at the year that Lies of P has had, look at the details of the game, the hype surrounding it, the reception to it, the updates and content that have happened in the last year, and finally the future of the game and of the studio. So today on Game Rant, let's look at Lies of P 1 year later. First off, let's look at the details of the game. Lies of P is an action RPG by a small studio called NeoWiz Games. It follows the story of Pinocchio, hence the P, as he tries to figure out why the world has fallen to ruin and all of the robots turn against all of the humans. Its story wears heavy influence on its sleeve, taking both from the 1883 novel The Adventures of Pinocchio, but also from the science and technology of the French Belle Epoque, a time of great idea and invention in the 18th and 19th century France. His journey leads him down a winding path as he discovers a great corruption at the heart of all this destruction. Lies of P takes heavy influence from games like Bloodborne and Dark Souls as it seeks to cash in on the genre that is in high demand and that has finite quality supply. Its combat leans more into the Bloodborne style as it relies on quick movement and perfect timing with very few options of blocking or defending at hand. Now let's look at the hype that surrounded the game pre-launch. The game was initially announced in June of 2021, and in June of 2023 would get a playable demo at Summer Game Fest that would contribute to a large rise in hype. There was a ton of hype surrounding Lies of P before launch. Its aesthetic was that of a dilapidated French city. It looked to have great enemy variety both in its bosses and in its mobs. Its gameplay mirrored much of the best elements of Bloodborne with fast dashing and backstepping and strong parries, and from the trailers it came together to create something super unique that felt additive to the Souls-like genre and not derivative. As such, it pulled in tons of Steam wishlists and a hungry fanbase that was excited to learn of its release on Game Pass. And while Lies of P didn't need Game Pass's release to gain traction and a player base, it certainly did help. Now let's move up to launch day, September 18th of 2023, and look at the reception of the game. Real quickly before I continue, spoiler warning for the rest of the video as I'm going to go over the end of the game and some stuff post-launch, so you've been warned. Many, myself included, would say that Lies of P is the closest any developer besides From Software has ever come to creating Souls-like perfection. Its combat and its combat sandbox feel perfect as bouts feel like battles of attrition as you sneak and attacks into tight windows in order to stagger your opponent. Its difficulty feels like a perfect tightrope as no boss is steamrolled, but neither are they impossible to get around. Its world and its story are fun and cryptic enough to hold the player's interest as they follow down a strange Pinocchio-like timeline in which you eventually face off against the puppet master Geppetto himself. The last thing to look at within the reception of Lies of P is the very few complaints about bugs. We live in an age of broken and messy launches, and the fact that NeoWiz, a fairly small studio with 0 games of this scope under their belt, managed to put out a fully formed game that played like a dream is a miracle. My opinion of it though is standard throughout Souls-like fans. The game landed an impressive 88% recommendation rate on OpenCritic as well as an 82% overall score. It is rare that a game in this genre lands with such good reception as similar titles such as Lords of the Fallen landed at a 73, Mortal Shell landed at a 75, and Code Vein landed at a 75 as well, meaning that Lies of P ranks among the best non-From Software developed Souls-like titles. All this from a fairly small studio in NeoWiz was an incredible surprise, one that will earn them great favor in their future endeavors. Now let's look at how the game fared after its launch. After launch, NeoWiz didn't have their work cut out for them since the game came out in such a good state in terms of bugs and glitches. NeoWiz could get to work on small quality of life features and minor tweaks with both bosses and minor bugs. The most influential patch within the lifecycle of Lies of P came on November 15th at the launch of patch 1.3.0. This patch brought in a massive tweak to difficulty. Many who played the game before this patch would say that the game leaned overall on the hard side of the Souls-like difficulty, but this patch did a number of things to increase the power power of the player while maintaining the difficulty of the game's bosses. Adding to the power of the player made the game feel the same, but also brought the difficulty down just enough to take away some of the frustrations that had been at the helm of previous versions. Ostensibly, Lies of P was still the same game, and someone who played it before patch and after patch wouldn't have much different to say about it, but this difficulty change did allow many more players to get through some of the bosses that had held them back. All that said, what does the future of Lies of P hold right now? We don't know. There has been buzz about DLCs, rumors about a follow-up game, and talks that the developer might just go in a whole different direction. Whatever it may be, NeoWiz has a knack for making games, and has earned the trust of the Soulslike community. Most of us would be happy to see them continue down the Lies of P route, but the story didn't leave that much left in terms of places to go. Geppetto is dead, the world is free from the poison, and the game feels pretty complete. Regardless, Lies of P was a wonderful experience. It's had a great year, even if its player count has dwindled as all single-player games do. The future is bright for NeoWiz games, and there is a vast sea of gamers excited for them to pull on our puppet strings and bring back the next experience. But for now, that was the Lies of P 1 year later.